All right, welcome everybody to Tarqaron.
Hello. Yes. Tarqaron.
This is our
This new venture.
first ever video on Tarqaron.
It is indeed.
And you might have heard of it, Avengers Endgame,
It's a
sweeping the
little
nation.
little indie movie that
Yeah,
Marvel decided to put all the stops out on, and
yeah. So primarily, we're just gonna be, discussing our thoughts. We're not gonna go super in depth on it, but we are gonna, cover the major points that stood out to us at least.
the pros, the cons. What do we love? What do we hate?
Yeah. So what do you think?
What did I think?
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it was an excellent film. I really liked how it really kind of tied everything in a really neat bow. I mean, if they just stopped making movies, it would be perfect. It'd be
Mm-hmm.
absolutely perfect. Of course, they're not going to because they're making tons of money, and there's obviously another Spider-Man coming out later this year. And they were already talking about like I've been reading articles recently. They have obviously talked about filming more movies. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is on the horizon, and some other ones as well. But honestly, just perfect way to end it. I don't want to say it's a perfect movie, but like they did everything that they needed to do and then some.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a very satisfied fan. Um, and I think pretty much everyone else in the theater was too. So it was a very happy crowd upon
Yeah.
leaving.
And it's pretty wild to think about because not this isn't done every day. What they did with Avengers Endgame was like monumental, having so many.
No, yeah.
How many films led up to this point?
21? Is this the 22nd film or is this the 23rd film? I always get confused with the
Something
number.
like that.
Something like that.
And
It's crazy.
I'm not an expert by any means on the Marvel Cinematic Universe because I still
Hmm.
haven't seen a lot of the big ones leading up to it actually. Um, so
I didn't see Captain Marvel, but
you
that's
see all the other
actually
ones?
I've seen pretty much every other one. I think the I think the only one I've missed since Age of Ultron was Captain Marvel in theaters. I've seen every single one. Actually of besides the Iron Man 2, the first Marvel Cinematic Universe film I saw in theaters was the first Avengers.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen Captain America and I hadn't seen Thor before I saw Avengers, the first one in 2012, and
Yeah.
that in and of itself. I mean, it's almost funny because when you go back and watch it, it's almost quaint now.
Right.
Because we were thinking when you're seeing that, like, holy
Yeah.
crap, this is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Couldn't get any better than this. And man, 7 years later, were we proven wrong?
Yeah. Because
Um,
for me, I had like sort of a superhero movie burnout for a while, where I was like,
okay.
they were so mainstream, and I'm like, I don't need to see every superhero movie.
Right, right. I mean, a lot of people have felt that. I mean, I know some friends of mine have even said, after this one, I'm done. I was invested, and it's just like now that I can finally like rest my hat and be like, okay, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh no, not me. I'm still even as much as I said like this is they could end it here. I'm still gonna be going and seeing them for
But yeah,
sure.
it's a. I think it's a testament that I can still really enjoy this movie, even having not seen a bunch of them. Like
Hmm.
even recently, some ones I just haven't gotten around to, like Black Panther, Ant
Oh
Man.
wow. Yeah.
Um, what other ones were recent? Doctor Strange. Never saw that
Oh
one
yeah.
either.
Oh okay.
Captain
Okay.
Marvel.
Yeah.
So it's like Thor, Thor Ragnarok. Yeah,
You haven't seen. Okay. So that's top three for me.
Thor Ragnarok.
Thor Ragnarok is in the top three. Yeah, I love that movie.
Yeah, I have to.
Um,
I'll have to just go through and start watching all these sometime, so I can have like the definitive perspective on
yeah, yeah.
everything. But like, I'm still was able to enjoy the characters. Like in Infinity War, I was able to enjoy Black Panther still. I was able to enjoy Doctor Strange there still, and Captain Marvel, though she was brief in this, it made sense, and I still was able to, enjoy it.
I actually really liked how restrained they were with her because they could have, based on everything that, because I never saw it, I didn't go see it. I read a sort of synopsis to kind of catch myself up on it. Really, you didn't even need that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
other than like she shows up at the beginning of the movie to save. Oh, I guess we'll start. Obviously, we're going to go into spoilers, so
Right.
be prepared. But basically, she just kind of shows up at the beginning of the movie to save Tony Stark and Nebula,
Mm-hmm.
and then goes like, "Okay, bye," and then just like leaves for pretty much the whole rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Um, but like, I mean, that seems like, oh, then why have her there at all? But it's like they could have. She's so powerful. They could have had her just like come in and just like curb stomp Thanos, who's back, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then it just is like, okay, well, what do you do? So they kind of have to like distract her, have other things,
They have to get
and
her
then
out of
even
there. Yeah.
right, and then even when she shows up at the end, she still doesn't, she holds her own, but then Thanos just takes the Power Stone and beats her down. So
Mm-hmm.
like out of the gauntlet, he like takes the Power Stone and then just punches her, and that was pretty sweet.
Yeah, and it's
But
interesting because Captain Marvel. Yeah, they had to get her out of there in order to not
mm,
have her just like she could have just done everything for them,
yeah,
and then instead you get like a lot more of a focus on characters like Black Widow and Hawkeye who were
hmm
like not even close to that strength. And in the past few films, Avengers movies, they've been very much in the background, like they haven't had much time to shine. So it's
yeah. Well,
interesting.
well, I'd actually say the I would say the main character of Age of Ultron was actually Hawkeye.
Okay.
Um, he like after that movie, he did sort of like he just kind of disappeared. He showed up again in Civil War, Captain America: Civil War. Um, but like you said, he's sort of a background character. Black Widow's been in these movies since Iron Man 2. She's played a stronger role in some movies more than others. Um,
Yeah, I think she's
but I mean,
faded off for sure though. And then
yeah, even in Infinity War, she was kind of like in the background and sort of, and I'm really glad that they brought those characters back. It's really this movie did a good job of sending off or concluding arcs for
yeah,
all of the sort of original six,
yeah, for sure.
um, and incredibly satisfactory.
So yeah, we
Um,
could talk about each of those the originals if you want where they
sure,
went. So we have Black Widow who ultimately we have the whole fight scene, which is a very unique fight scene between Hawkeye and Black Widow trying to
yeah,
sacrifice each other.
yeah. They're trying to sacrifice themselves
Yeah,
over the other,
themselves.
so they're fighting each other
Yeah.
to jump off the I don't remember the name of the planet, but in order to sacrifice themselves
What is
to
it?
get the Soul Stone.
Vormir, something like that.
Vormir, I think. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And yeah, it's I never expected a lot of the scenes in this movie. I did not expect at all. But yeah, I
Mm.
never expected to have like I never expected in the first place to for Black Widow to die, but to have that
Yeah.
whole altercation was interesting.
Yeah, it was well when they were there, I was like, okay, well, one of them isn't coming back, and I couldn't figure out which one it was gonna be.
Hmm.
Um, Particularly because the beginning of the movie shows Hawkeye dealing with this loss. He's all of and his entire family gets snapped,
Yeah, which is
essentially.
also I really love that opening too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, what a great it's a cold open like that. It's really great. Um, but meanwhile, also the thread through the movie is Black Widow not being able to move on, being like essentially like my family is gone, and I can't. There's like this rift. But I have to have them back, kind of thing. So it's ultimately she makes the sacrifice. She would rather not be there and have her family still be there, essentially.
Hmm.
Um, is together again. So like really pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and
So yeah, a lot. There's a lot of closure there with Black Widow's story,
yeah,
whereas other ones like let's say Bruce Banner
Bruce
is
Banner.
like just taken in a whole new direction, and there's like
Yeah,
I definitely didn't expect that either. There's a lot of just curveballs they threw at us.
no, I didn't expect it either. They talked. I was reading an article where they talked to him about like what do you want your or I guess sort of brainstorming with Mark Ruffalo about like, kind of where do you want to see this character go? Because Mark Ruffalo's Hulk has never really had a movie of his own. Um, so they talked about it, and through Thor Ragnarok, Infinity War, and now Endgame, he has kind of a three-movie arc
Hmm.
where him coming to terms with Bruce Banner and the Hulk personality, so much so that he's now like fused them together
Yeah.
in a really strange, fun, weird, and great way.
Yeah.
Um, like where he's just Hulk all the time, but he has the personality of Bruce Banner.
Yeah, which is very weird. I didn't know what to think of it at first because I was like, we're never gonna
Hmm.
get regular Bruce Banner then, because this is literally just Bruce Banner talking through the Hulk. So it's like
Yeah,
I wanted to see Mark Ruffalo more, but they still found ways to squeeze him in there.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so that's interesting. There's definitely no closure there. So we know there's more in store for Hulk moving forward.
Probably. I
It,
would I would guess so.
it'd
Yeah.
be interesting if we got a Hulk movie in some capacity.
Yeah, maybe. I think well, I think that there is some sort of closure. You could I think from what they had in those three movies, I think they could probably say that's good. Depends on what Mark Ruffalo, I guess. I suppose it depends on what he wants if he wants to continue doing stuff
Hmm.
or not. But um yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting to think about for sure because yeah, it's not like the door is certainly open for him. Let's say.
yeah. Another character. We can go back to Hawkeye real quick.
Yeah, sure.
I thought Hawkeye was really shined in this movie, and I thought Jeremy Renner was really good.
Oh
Just had
yeah,
some
he was
really great
amazing.
moments.
Yeah.
Like the emotional moments were done really well. I mean, throughout this whole film, the emotional parts were like the highlights for me because it's like really the culmination of so many years, and you could actually like feel it and see it in these characters. So I thought Hawkeye, like especially early on in the first Avengers, I was like Hawkeye's the irrelevant one. Like no one cares about
Hmm.
Hawkeye. He's just
Hmm.
kind of there, and now they kind of taken him and given him this so many moments in this movie. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, because he takes a very dark turn. He loses his entire family, and there's nothing he can do to get them back, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, no, I think he did a great job too. I really liked. Um, yeah, I agree. I really can't even add anything to that, honestly.
yeah. It's
So,
it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. Like with all the OG cast that is left, to see where they take them, and how like prominent they'll be in future films or not.
I think my guess would be that most of them are probably not going to be super doing tons of stuff anymore. Anyways,
Hmm.
well, we can get to some of the ones that we know for sure will not be
Right.
doing more things.
Before that, I want to talk
Before that,
about
okay,
Jeremy Hawkeye had
okay,
his own way
yeah,
of coping, but then we saw Thor, who they
yes,
took in a completely different, which was
also a completely different
yeah,
direction.
another curveball. Like you have Hulk in this completely new form, you have Thor in his completely new form, or it's just the fat, lazy
That
Thor.
Thor,
Yeah, and we had Fortnite. I did not expect Fortnite
yeah, Fortnite to
in
show up
Endgame.
in yeah, me neither. That was pretty. And in an extended scene where the rock guys from Thor Ragnarok are like playing Fortnite, like, hey, this guy called me a
so,
bad name,
so
and
weird.
so it was really yeah, it was very. I was kind of like,
But it's
yeah,
interesting they did a hard committal to Thor as the fat Thor. I thought it was like next scene will somehow gloss over that and like get him back to his regular.
I,
Uh,
I'm really glad that they stuck with it.
yeah,
And one of the reasons why is because I think he looks like Odin now. Like they made him
right.
look more like Odin because he's got a little bit more disheveled hair. He's got like the full beard. It's not thin. It's like a full kind of thing going on,
Hmm.
and he's fat. He looks a lot like Odin,
He's
and I really
more
like.
yeah he's more godly and like
Yeah.
yeah.
Um.
But ultimately
And
we see him like go through so much, and you see him even go back to like talk to his mother and everything. Obviously, the whole time travel aspect took people
mhm.
back to old moments and stuff, but it was cool to see him relive some of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think his arc probably throughout all of these movies might be my favorite because of how much how much he's gone through.
Right?
Just like and obviously you haven't seen Ragnarok, but he
Hmm.
loses a lot of stuff in that movie, like a lot. And then he loses a lot again in Infinity War.
Right.
And then that moment at the beginning of this movie, like the first 10 minutes where they just bust in to Thanos just cooking his meal,
Hmm.
and they just chop his head off
Hmm.
just ingloriously, and then it fades out. I was like, ugh. I just felt like I just like felt like gross, which is like great because that's what you want. That's what you want to feel. You want to feel as like down and awful and disgusting as the like everyone else feels, which is then what Thor becomes. He just doesn't take care of himself after that.
Yeah, and it's crazy. They did really well with this movie, showing like these crazy characters who are like, they should not be at all like realistic. They seem like these extravagant powers, and like you should not be able
Hmm.
to relate to them at all. But yet they make them all relatable. And Thor, who's like the most powerful of the Avengers, is like most affected by what happened.
Yeah,
Like even he not being a regular human is still affected so much by
yeah,
everything that's happened. So
yeah,
it's really powerful. It's not they're just going back at it and each time they're just the same old Thor, same old Iron Man every time. You're
yeah.
actually seeing development throughout all these movies, which is really cool.
And and um and Chris Hemsworth. I have to get all the because there's three Chris.
Liam
There's
Liam
There's
Hemsworth.
so many. I know, but I'm thinking because there's so many Chris's in this universe. So
Okay.
there's Chris
Yeah.
Evans, Chris Hemsworth,
Chris Pratt.
and Chris Pratt, and there's Chris Pine, who's not in this one. He's in the other. He's in the other universe.
That's right.
Um, but yeah, I think they just finally figured out that wow, Chris Hemsworth is very funny,
Hmm.
and he is hysterical in this movie. Yeah, okay, he's gone through a lot and he's kind of been depressed, but that doesn't keep him from being pretty funny.
Yeah, and then ultimately he ends up giving up Asgard to Valkyrie, and that was a cool kind of like realization that like
Yep.
stop trying to be who you're
Yeah.
supposed to be. Oh my, what happened? You're all
Oh,
green for me
oh,
now.
oh no.
What is this? Are you
I
the
hope
Hulk?
that does. I hope that doesn't stay.
Um, this is our reality now, I guess.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh no.
So yeah, he ultimately gives up Asgard to Valkyrie, and then we have the Asgardians of the Galaxy going on. So
Yeah.
now it's like, is he gonna be in the next Guardians of the Galaxy movie?
That I don't know. I
Who
think
knows?
we'll have to see. Um,
It'll be
but yeah,
interesting
I kind of
because
like I like the potential there
yeah,
because I think him and Chris Pratt like rubbing heads is just like that's just they just chew up so much scenery together. It's like that's like
yeah,
film gold right there. It's great. So I kind of do want to see them mine that for what it's worth.
yeah. So that's interesting. I think the last two of the original Avengers we have are the ones who had the biggest moments, right?
Yeah.
So we have obviously the biggest one for most people was Tony Stark, and
Hmm.
like going into the movie, people were that was the biggest speculation is that Tony Stark and Steve Rogers would be most in danger because of like the actors themselves being there so long and
Yeah.
contracts and whatnot. So those were the two most suspected. Like one or both of them will die in some
Hmm.
capacity. But the way they handled Tony Stark, I thought was really well done.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, and that was another thing too that I found out through an interview. They they didn't they didn't determine that his last line was like going to be that until reshoots.
Mm-hmm.
They added that line in during reshoots. I
Okay.
am Iron Man. And it's just such a beautiful callback to the first movie
Yeah.
and subsequent movies because like Iron Man 3 ended that way too. With a voiceover. So I think bringing that full circle to his whole character as his whole character arc, um, which in this movie is amazing too, because he gets to experience fatherhood and which he's me personally, have been kind of wanting some payoff in with this relationship with Pepper for a long time. Um,
Right.
we get to see that. We get to see him meet his dad and like really connect with his dad through the time travel shenanigans.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, and we get to see him just completely make the ultimate sacrifice for that world, for
Yeah.
the people that he's made all of this whole long line, this whole history of 10 films, a connection with. And by 10 films, I mean 10 years of films, 20 something films. Um, it was just amazing.
Yeah.
That was just perfect.
I think Tony Stark has had the most brilliant character arc, not only in this movie alone, but overall. I think they just did it
Yeah.
really well. From if you look at the first movie, where he's just like the egotistic billionaire who just doesn't care about anyone else, to now where
Hmm.
he's like doing the most selfless thing imaginable, and
Yeah,
it's
it's amazing,
and it's really
really.
cool how you can see throughout just this movie how he's going through that, and like he has everything while other people lost so much, and he ultimately has to. He said the thing he wants most is to keep what he has, and then he has to give that up in order to help people in the end, of course. And
Yeah.
the way, even like after the fact, like Pepper Potts, the way she handled that too, that those final moments were really nice too, where she was like, "We're gonna be okay."
Yeah, she completely understands him as a
It
person.
was
It's
really powerful, and I thought
very powerful.
the whole
Yeah.
end part, like after his death and leading up to it, where there was just like so much silence, it just really drug out those feelings. It was like I was in pain. I was just like trying to hold it back.
Honestly, that death scene was like one of the most. I almost want to say it was like realistic because like he didn't say anything really
Yeah.
after. Like he kind of you could tell he made like he made some. I don't remember if he ever really said anything. He kind of like mumbled and he sort of like you could tell he was seeing that people were there, but like it's like he was so horribly injured that like he couldn't say
Mm-hmm.
hardly do anything.
Yeah.
Um, which is like you see always like you always want the last monologue of your hero or whatever, you know, in your death scene because that's but he already had that he already had that moment. He
Yeah,
said I am Iron Man
and at the same time,
and
they were able to give him more lines by having that message at the end, also.
oh 100%. Oh yeah, and that too.
So
That was great. That was also great. Yeah.
yeah,
So they call back at um in the beginning of the movie he starts putting it off a transmission. At the end of the movie they call back to it. It's not the same one, but it's like the same kind of it's the same style of it like fades back into
yeah,
him sort of monologuing over events that are going on.
yeah. It was really really well done, and it's so
Yeah.
powerful because it's so many years building into this character, unlike almost any character death we've seen before. So it's gonna have a lot of effect on a lot of people. So you had that, and then the other
Oh,
big
yeah,
one.
there was there
Go ahead.
I was gonna say there was not a dry eye in the audience. Like in the audience, I could hear the entire full theater like sniffing and like crying behind me. It was just like, yeah, I mean that's it was very powerful.
They just use the
Very, very-
silence so well, and
Oh
like there
yeah,
was just no words being said, and I'm just like, you just everybody's in there stewing in it, watching in
yeah,
the theater because
yeah,
nothing to comfort you, no
yeah.
sound or anything.
There wasn't any music or anything. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was great.
So yeah, Tony Stark, which is a big one, and
Hmm.
he was almost like the star of the movie. But we also had Steve Rogers, Captain America,
Hmm.
who ultimately lives his life, and that was another really satisfying arc too, because he finally gets to have the dance he always wanted to have. He never got to
Yeah,
have, and he ends up actually living his full life. It's really really cool.
yeah. I well, and that's both of those characters too. I loved seeing kind of a sort of what's the word? I really like seeing Iron Man and Captain America come to terms with each other and sort of repair that relationship a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, and Tony says to Steve at one point, and I think even in this movie, it was just like, you need to like, I want you to have had, some of what I experienced of the 5 year time gap. So like he wishes he's like, you need a little piece of that, like, in your life essentially. So
Yeah.
and he does. He gets to live out that life that he was unable to have because of getting frozen up in the
Yeah.
polar ice caps.
Now are we gonna have old Steve Rogers in the next
No.
movie? Well, imagine they just have him in the next 5 movies
It
old.
just be like it just just like digitally just like put him in there. Like
he's
there's
he's just always like old Steve Rogers is just always hanging out with
just
everybody.
always he's just chilling.
He's
He's
just
just
hanging
like
out with the guys.
yeah. Well, that was I was very impressed at how that looked. Like
Right?
that again, that was another thing I looked up. And apparently that was like mostly CG and then a little bit of makeup.
Okay.
That did not look I honestly thought that was all makeup and I thought it was just amazing makeup. Like that's how good it looked.
Yeah.
I was just stunned at like because yeah, when he shows up, I was like, wow, it's like that's old Steve Rogers. That looks like just like him, and he's an old man. So
Yeah, and
because a lot of times that old man makeup it looks so bad.
right.
Um, so they didn't. It was old man CG, and it looked amazing.
Yeah, and he ultimately passes the Captain America shield to Falcon,
Yeah,
which I didn't expect that either. And
yeah. No, I didn't either.
a lot of the passing of the torch in this movie, huh?
Yeah, it's So there's definitely a lot of doors kept open for the future.
Yeah, a lot of ways they could take things,
Yep. There was no post-credit scene in this movie. Um, the only thing at the very end was like it sounded like there was like a tinkering sounding like it was going on in the background.
Yeah, I
Because
heard about
essentially,
that.
it basically to me that message was just like we're still going, we're still working on stuff. So it's like I appreciate that.
I heard it was like from like sounds from the first like Iron Man like building
Oh,
the
was
suit.
it? Oh, was it?
That's what I heard. I
Oh,
never
that would be so great if that was actually the case.
I never confirmed it, but I heard
Yeah, I
that
don't
one.
know. That's cool. But it was cool not having a post-credit scene. Like it again, that's sort of the tying the bow
Yeah,
on the whole thing.
and
But
ultimately, I think it was really well done the whole movie, but I think still I kind of like Infinity War even more. Still, it's tough for me, but I think
it
Infinity
is
War like had the after watching that I was just like so blown away, and like you did have a lot more characters in the mix there too. Like the Guardians weren't as involved in this one, and a lot of the
mhm.
people who had been taken by Thanos' snap before didn't have as much of an active role. So
Right.
it was more impressive in Infinity War that they managed to shove everybody in there.
Yeah, I
But
I
yeah,
think I think I think I would tend to agree with you. I think I also liked Infinity War more than Endgame. And I think it's kind of almost like Empire Strikes Back syndrome, like where it's like sometimes that dramatic cliffhanger ending, this not a very happy ending, is ultimately a more satisfying movie than like Return of the Jedi, which I still love. Return of the Jedi is a fantastic conclusion to that story, but um, I think. Well, one thing I guess we can sort of talk a little bit about cons. We've kind of fawned over the movie.
mhm.
Um, the only really major issue, and it's not even really a major issue actually. The only issue that I really have with the movie is that towards the end of the second act, it sort of is kind of like okay, like we kind of need to see what's going to go on now. It sort of feels like a little like the movie's almost starting to lose its pace a little bit. It's
Yeah,
like we're getting caught up in time travel stuff, and it's a lot of fun. It's really cool. I love seeing them all do all the time travel, the time heist.
right.
Um, and it's fun seeing, it's like, oh no, the plan didn't go according to really well here. We have to improvise, and that was all great. But there was still kind of like, okay, well, they've found all the stones. Like, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? But then the third part starts with a bang, like a literal explosion.
Yeah.
Um,
I was like,
and
did they all just die? I was like, are they? Is this
yeah, no,
after that?
I kind of was like, what just happened? The friend of mine that I went and saw the movie with described it as, yeah, it was sort of like really slow, and then the third act started, and everything just went bananas.
Yeah,
And I was like, yeah, that's pretty much what happened, because like the whole rest of the movie was just nonstop action, and it was great.
yeah, and
Um,
I'd agree overall that like the pacing is not as tight as it was in Infinity War. Like Infinity War, like never stopped having like these great scenes,
yeah,
and this one was like slower for sure,
it,
but
it it was almost like three different movies in a way. So
yeah,
you get your first one where it's like they're reveling. It's basically this is the world now, and we're stewing in it, and like we have to deal with it. The second movie is the time heist, and then the third movie is the conclusion of the Infinity War, essentially.
yeah,
Um, and honestly, that's what they needed to do. I mean, like I can't really fault can't really fault the movie as much for that. Yes, it does sort of drag a little bit near the end of the second act, but like I don't know how else they could have done it personally.
hmm
So I despite that, I still think they did as good a job as they could have, particularly because it was 3 hours long.
yeah.
So
I think the
and
yeah. What's up?
I was gonna say, and there really wasn't a moment because they had said before, it's like, oh, you better be prepared. It's a tight 3 hours. You can't really. There really wasn't any really time for a break in the action, like where they could have
Right.
slammed an intermission or anything in there. It wouldn't have felt right. So,
Yeah,
uh,
I think what the movie did best was subverting expectations, like in some ways, but like primarily,
also giving us what we want in other ways too.
yeah, but primarily
But
going into it, like none of the theories going in were really. I didn't hear anyone theorizing a lot of the things they did with Hulk and Thor and
yeah, me neither.
ultimately Captain America. So that's really cool. I think the biggest flaw for me though was honestly outside of the movie itself, the fact that the Marvel Cinematic Universe exists. You knew going into this movie that these characters had to come back from Infinity War after
Yeah,
Thanos. So
yeah,
like I feel like that's something that Infinity War was super powerful, that ending, but it's like, oh well, we do have another Spider-Man movie coming, so you know they have
yeah,
to save him. And if it was like somehow you didn't know that was going to happen going into it, that would have
yeah.
been really made it a lot more powerful when they did all come back.
That's true. Yeah, it was still like it was still pretty good though
Still a great
it was still
moment.
really
Yeah,
good. It was still pretty fan like the so we that phrase is bandied about a lot, subverting expectations, especially now that we're in a post The Last Jedi world.
mm-hmm.
Um, these movies have done that right though. The Last Jedi was not able to do subverting expectations in that sense was literally just like doing stuff was like literally just doing stuff for basically no reason. It's like, oh, we're just not gonna follow what people want just to not follow what people want. This is subverting expectations in a good way where it's still like, oh, I didn't expect that, but wow, that makes sense, and wow, that's really cool.
Yeah,
I'm glad they did
it's
that.
giving
It's
you
not like a
it's giving you
huh
it's
or
giving you
what?
what you didn't know you wanted,
Exactly.
but once you
And
see it,
not
it's like
just
it has to be this way. All right, this is
yeah,
perfect.
yeah. I think they I think Kevin Feige has done such an amazing job with this, and the Russo brothers as well, just doing such an amazing job crafting this conclusion
Mm-hmm.
to this huge, unprecedented saga. Um,
Yeah,
it's
and really,
really unlike anything in cinematic history. I
yeah. I
mean,
mean,
like,
even just looking at the cast is insane. How many huge names are
oh,
in this?
totally, it's unbelievable. I mean, like, for crying out loud, like Robert Redford shows up again in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just like, I mean, he's just there for like 10 seconds, but it's just like, there's Robert Redford, there he is. And remember him, cinematic, you know. Um, yeah, they did so many like crazy things. Also, the one of my favorite little moments was during the funeral scene where they brought the little boy from Iron Man 3 back
Mm-hmm.
for that. That was just I love that movie. I think that movie is very high, severely underrated because people don't like the fact that they didn't do the Mandarin justice in that movie. You know, that's not really what the movie was about, but that's a whole other topic. I just love the fact that they brought that little kid back, because I love that movie, and that was just a nice little moment. So
Yeah, it's like in spite of like such a huge budget and how much of a blockbuster film it is, like often you get carried away with and you lose sight of
the
like
heart,
tight, yeah, the heart and just like really good writing, but they managed to keep that and like just like really good dialogue all the way through.
yeah,
Something that I've noticed like through Infinity War and this one, just the dialogue is so meticulously written and
hmm,
everything's so purposefully done. It's really nice to see from a AAA film to do something
yeah.
like that.
It's very intentional. I like that too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and really, if you just look at the MCU overall, it's like and change the entire scope of films where the nerdy things are now mainstream.
Yeah,
Avengers Endgame, the biggest movie in the world right now,
yep.
and so many of these are in
The
like the
biggest
top.
opening of all time.
Yeah, so many
It's
of
like
these are in
made
the
$1 billion
top
already.
box office of all time. If you look in the top box office, you got all like so many Marvel movies now,
Yeah.
which is insane.
Mm.
But yeah, so it was pretty good.
Yeah.
It was decent.
Solid movie. Sounds okay. Um. So before we end, so favorite moments, favorite moments.
Favorite
Period.
moments.
I know mine, which I don't do this often, and I'm a little embarrassed about it.
Oh,
Kind
what?
but it made me clap and like whoop in the theater.
Whoop.
Yeah, I don't usually do that. But it
Oh
was
wait,
when
wait, no, it's the I know what it is. It's
do you know what it
Captain
is?
America picks up Mjolnir. Okay.
Yes, yes,
We didn't even talk
yes.
about
That
that. Okay.
I was so I was so happy that that happened that I couldn't contain myself. It was great, and there was more people that it wasn't just me either. So it wasn't just me.
That
There
is
were other
great.
people in the
Yeah.
crowd that did it too. So, um, yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's
that
great.
moment was one of was probably my favorite in the whole movie.
Can't believe we
I
didn't
love
mention
that.
that before. Yeah. That those are the
Well,
moments.
well, well, we're just sort of talking about character arcs for the most
Yeah.
part. It's like because that's really what this movie did extremely well is just um, satisfying conclusions to these characters that we've been with for so long. So, um, yeah,
And those are like not only brilliant character arcs, but those moments like that are like what makes these movies so good too. Is there's so
yeah,
many, especially now with the whole most ambitious crossover of all time.
yeah,
Just as all
yeah,
these crossover moments makes it so good.
yeah. Well, and what's really great is that this movie also pays tribute to a lot of those like stellar moments.
Hmm.
So we have during the time travel segments, which again we can sort of like dip into a little bit here,
I
but
can do this all
um,
day.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's that. There's there's like them with Star Lord dancing on
Hmm.
whatever I always forget the planet names. Um,
Tatooine, of course.
sure, sure,
I
yeah,
don't,
that
yeah, I
one,
don't know the
that
planet
one
names.
from the Star Wars. Um, where Star Lord's just dancing and singing to the opening song from Guardians of the Galaxy,
Hmm.
and like that, which is one of my favorite character introductions in movie history. I love like that's one of my favorite moments. The fact that they're there and it just cuts from playing the song to just Chris Pratt singing, just like with complete silence.
Yeah.
They're just like, he's an idiot, isn't he? um, or like them coming back to the New York invasion in Avengers 1 and you getting to see the cool spin around shot again and um, seeing like different perspectives of the invasion on New York. Such they can reference themselves now and make it really cool and not make it just be like, oh, they're just dragging up this old stuff from the past. They're making
Hmm.
it really interesting and fun. And that's really what these movies are really great at is just being fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And my favorite moment, I don't think I have a new one. I think it would probably still be Tony Stark's death ultimately.
mm,
It's not like a hype moment, but I think that's just one of the
no, it's
most brilliantly done moments in all of these movies.
incredibly satisfying. It's just heartbreaking and beautiful and thoughtful filmmaking.
Yeah.
Really, yeah, for sure.
So it's unfortunate we won't be able to see Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man anymore, but because he was always the heart of the Avengers movies, but
Yeah, that's true.
but we're gonna see a whole new generation of Avengers and Marvel Cinematic Universe now.
Yep, there's a whole new thing out there. So Spider-Man: Far From Home is supposed to take place like apparently start like right after the end of this one. So it's going to be like I
Really?
think
Okay.
some people were saying it's like it's going to be the epilogue essentially to Endgame. So
Okay.
we'll have to see when that comes out. I don't know if there's any Marvel movies coming out next year though.
Really?
I don't think so. There haven't really been any
Not.
that have been announced
There's no
anyways.
way. There's no way. Not at all.
Hmm?
Hmm. I
No,
feel
no,
like
no. They're starting their TV. They're Disney starting their TV thing.
that's
Their
right.
Disney Plus stuff. There's a ton of Marvel shows. There's a Loki show. There's supposed to be a Falcon show. There's supposed to be like a,
Hawkeye.
Bu- a Bucky show. You know,
Mm,
there's supposed to be a Hawkeye show. So they'll have their hands full
right.
still.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting too.
Yeah,
Taking over the world with this stuff.
yeah. Because now we have the whole new front. Now we have a whole new frontier with all these different streaming platforms that are now like we've heard about them for a long time, but now they're actually starting to do stuff for them. So
Hmm.
yeah, what a world we live in.
So to conclude this all, we should each give a score for Avengers Endgame
Okay,
out of 10, I guess,
okay.
and then we'll have a final Tarqaron
The final
score.
Tarqaron aggregate score.
Yeah.
Um, okay,
Let's stick to zero point 0.5 decimals at the most.
0.5. Okay. So I haven't shied away from this. I think I'm gonna stick to it. I rate things high in general, anyways.
Oh, 10 out of 10.
No,
Okay.
it's a 9.5 out of 10. So
Okay.
it's very high. I think Infinity War would probably be the probably
Perfect
be the
10.
10.
Yeah,
But
I almost
I give it
never
like a
do 10.
9.5.
I don't think I would ever do 10 out of 10s. I don't know. But yeah, if anything were to get 10 out of 10, it would be Infinity War.
Yeah.
But I still feel like that would be like 9.5 out of 10. Not
Well,
perfect.
here's the thing. A lot of times my rating doesn't come down to like uh, a lot of it comes down to like how I enjoy a movie. Like obviously some stuff I have to like knock it for, even if it's something I really love. Like I would never like for example, I would never give the game Deadly Premonition a 10 out of 10, even though that was one of my favorite experiences
Right.
ever playing a game. That game is like it's like a 5 at best, but
Yeah.
like that game is so good. But anyway,
Alright, so I would give it a 9 out of 10,
okay.
which gives us a Tarkaron score of 9.25 out of
10.
10.
Whoa!
Oh my
What a
god.
crazy. Yeah.
Only,
Okay.
yeah. Only because I don't, like you said, the pacing I don't think was as good as Infinity War. And I
Yeah,
don't know if I would give Infinity War a perfect 10 as is, so.
that's
But
fair. That's
I don't know. It's over time it could change. It could be better or worse with time. But
yeah. I mean,
right now,
like anything. Like I loved Last Jedi when I saw that originally, but as is
how
not
how do
done
you
well.
love it when you see it originally and you're hating on it right here?
Time. No, time
Yeah, but I
allows you
I,
to process stuff
I
a little
knew
bit
when I
better.
saw it that I didn't think it was very good, and I still don't think it was very good. So
I mean, that's fair. That's good.
I
But
feel
like
like
sometimes when you see a movie that you're hyped for and then it does stuff that you, like we said, weren't expecting, you stay hyped for it. But then after time goes on, once the hype starts to die down, the weaker aspects of the movie that always kind of bothered you in the back of your brain, but you didn't really say anything about, start to sort of show themselves a little bit more. That's happened for, trust me.
for me,
That was like episode one for me. It was when I was a little kid. I was like, this is awesome. This is great. Episode
well,
one's awesome.
for me at least in the adult age, like not watching something that I haven't watched since childhood. If I watch something now and watch something a couple years later, I feel like it only makes the age better for me, if anything. Like usually I have a less positive view of things after seeing it than
It's
in time, I think.
To me, it's all dependent on what we're talking about. But that's a whole other topic.
All right, let's
We gotta
talk
wrap
about
this
that.
up. Tarkaron 9.25. go see it if you haven't already. Why'd you watch this if you haven't already?
Yeah, okay.
But really,
Everybody's
seriously,
watching
go
this.
go see it again. I can't wait to see it again. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it again for sure.
Yeah, it's okay. Maybe we should review every Marvel Cinematic Universe movie ever.
It could be something we could do. I'm game.
At least we
I love
should.
these movies.
Maybe if we do the ones that I haven't seen, at least. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. This is a
Cool.
new thing. So we're gonna have a lot of different stuff coming. You know, talking about pretty much anything like film, television, gaming, anything goes there.
Yeah, we making it up as we go, sort
Yeah.
of, a little bit. We have an idea what we're doing, but we're gonna freeform it and see how it evolves over time. So
Primarily discussion based
yep,
reviews and
reactions.
reactions.
Yep.
That's what it's gonna
So
be. All right. Thank you.
see ya.